blocks or some substitute for blocks, a phone book, an upside down cooking pot. It will also be helpful to have a blanket or a pillow. If you have a bolster, an actual official yoga bolster, this might be a nice time to use it, but a big pillow will do, or even a chair, or a yoga ball, or 2 yoga blocks, so something that you can lean on a little bit in some of the forward folding. And you can also totally make do without any of that. It's just a little bit more relaxing for you if you have the props to support you. And I will go ahead and bring us in. Good morning, and welcome to this YogaX movement practice. Most of you have been with me before, so by now you know that this month our practices are themed by loving kindness. And because of everything that's happening in our world right now, I'm also dedicating all of these loving kindness classes to the Black Lives Matter movement and to all of the peaceful anti-racism protests. It seems quite apropos to send loving kindness in the direction of those very important happenings in our lives. And it also seems quite important to keep tapping into our loving kindness, to stay present with everything that's happening from the pandemic to racism to protests and everything that's happening. And so the first week we dealt with loving kindness from the perspective of moving into what in neuroscience we call our ventrovagal space. In yoga we may say our connected nervous system that allows us for social engagement, that allows us to communicate with one another, to connect to one another, and to stay engaged even through the tough times. And then last week we explored how we can stay in this connected place even when we have challenge that arises, whether that's aversion or hatred or greed or fear, all of those things. If we can sit with them and breathe through them, we can reconnect to our loving kindness, to that social connection that we really are hardwired for. Today we will continue with that exploration, and we will look at any sort of habits that we have, either emotionally or mentally, that might distract us from moving into our connected, loving, kind space. And so you'll see a lot of repeating of themes in terms of physical and breathing activities that we do. And then a lot of encouragement to sort of introspect and move inward as we move through some forward folding today. And so for the opening centering, I invite you to find a comfortable seat. Now this might mean that you sit in an easy seat like I do, or you might sit on your heels, maybe with a block under the sits bones so that the hips are higher than the knees. It's more relaxing for your nervous system when there's no strain in the body, and so really find a seat that works for you and that's comfortable. You could sit in a chair, you could sit on a yoga ball. And if you have a hard time finding a comfortable seat, you could even lie down. So yogi's choice. Make your choice with loving awareness of what you need in this moment. And once you have found your calmest, most auspicious position, I invite you to close the eyes. And if that does not feel appropriate, you might just cast your gaze downward to find perhaps a focal point where you can rest your eyes. And then I invite you to invite your body to ground into the earth. Wherever you feel a contact with the earth, you might imagine growing roots to connect yourself to the earth, which connects all of us. You could even imagine that you can grow your root system into the root systems that all of us are growing right now, like the root system underneath a forest that connects all of the trees. And from that place of feeling rooted and grounded and connected, invite your body to feel spacious. Maybe allowing the inhalation to bring openness into the belly, into the chest, and into the heart. Maybe inviting the crown of the head to lift toward a higher purpose for your practice. Maybe consciously inhaling to open and exhaling to ground and connect. And perhaps you might notice that in the center of this grounding sensation and this spaciousness, there's an inner stability that holds you steady and that anchors you to your own inner purpose, to yourself, all of your different layers. From this place of being grounded, spacious, and stable, I invite you to inhale very attentively, very mindfully. And then at the top of the inhalation, to swallow. Let that swallowing initiate the exhalation. And then find a gentle pause at the bottom of the exhalation. And if that feels comfortable to you, repeat that sequence of inhaling consciously and mindfully, making a swallowing motion, even if there is no saliva to swallow in this moment. Then exhaling and pausing for as long as is appropriate for your breath in this moment and in this space. So for some of us, it may be a very short pause. For some of us, it might be a relatively lengthy pause. As long as there's no gasping for air when you inhale, you've found a good length for your pause. If you do find yourself reaching for the inhalation, maybe decrease the length of the pause. Find your own rhythm. Inhaling, swallowing, exhaling, and pausing. If the mind wanders away from the breath, gently invite it to return to this rhythm of inhaling, swallowing, exhaling, and pausing. Invite the mind to see the breath as an anchor, as a connection to the here and now, to this moment and to this space. And be gentle with the mind when it does wander. Lovingly return it to the breath. You might notice that in time, the rhythm of your breath changes slightly. Maybe the pause is lengthening. Maybe the exhalation is lengthening. Sit and observe how breath and body and mind work together to hold you here in this moment, grounded, spacious, and stable. Connected to yourself, connected to your community. I invite you now, if you're still swallowing at the top of the breath, to let go of that part of the breathing. Of the inhaling, maybe pausing, exhaling, pausing. And then your hands might rest on your thighs, or if it's comfortable, perhaps your palms draw together at your heart as you bow your head to heart center. To invite an intention for your time on the mat today. With a conscious, mindful, and loving inhalation, seal that intention into your heart, into every fiber of your being. And with a conscious, mindful, and loving exhalation, send that intention to your community, to your larger world. And then release the hands. If the eyes are closed, gently flicker them open, and then lift your focus. And let's come to standing. So you might not see all of me, especially my arms may be cut off, but hopefully you can see enough of me to see what's happening here. I'm also going to have to turn sideways a little bit so I don't hit this wall. So we'll start in mountain pose, and I invite you in mountain pose to find the same grounding spaciousness and stability that you had when you were seated for your breathing practice. And so imagine rerouting yourself through your feet. Imagine length in the spine, length in the entire body, openness in your heart. And draw your belly in to feel your own strength. Maybe even drawing the pelvic floor up and in to connect to your inner stability, your solidity that can withstand challenge. And then from that place, I invite you to lift the arms as you inhale and lower the arms as you exhale, moving with your own rhythm here. You could engage the same breath that we engaged in our opening centering, either with a pause at the top of the breath or a swallow, and maybe with a pause at the bottom of the breath. We'll just move through this a few times to awaken our body. And the complexity, of course, increases when we're standing and we still have to ground through the feet. We have to engage through the core. We lift through the spine. And so notice what's happening as the challenge increases, movement and breath, combining here lovingly and kindly. The next time your arms are overhead, keep them there. And then interlace the fingers like this. And then bring them forward just like I did to show you the interlace. And then take them up and behind you so that your thumbs are at the occiput. That's those are the two little knobby points at the bottom of your skull, the top of your neck. We did this seated a couple of weeks ago. And press the head into the hands, hands into the head. The arms are as wide open as feels comfortable for your body, so we may not all make the same form here. Without moving the head, turn your eyes to the right, looking at an imaginary 3 o'clock on a big clock. This is a beautiful stimulation for your vagus nerve and some of the cranial nerves that innervate the face. So again, not moving the head at all, just gazing at 3 o'clock as you continue to breathe. One more round of breath, gazing at 3 o'clock. And then with the subsequent inhalation, bring the eyes to center. Look straight forward and take one breath. And then as you exhale, again holding body and head steady. There's no outer movement. Gaze to the left at an imaginary 9 o'clock. The head does not move. Only the eyes are anchored at 9 o'clock. Taking 2 more rounds of breath here. And then with your next inhalation, turn your gaze to center. Lift the arms up and overhead and return them down with an exhalation. And then let's take the arms up and down just a couple more times. On the second time that you're bringing the arms or the hands overhead, clasp the left wrist with the right hand. I'm going to come to my knees so you can see that, but you stay standing. And then bend to the right, stretching the left side body long, feeling the opening. Taking a couple of breaths here. And then with your next inhalation, come to center, let the hands separate and take a full breath. And then gently bring the left hand to clasp the right wrist and stretch to the left. Opening now the right side body. Feeling spacious and open, ready to receive. And lift up, separate the hands, and once again take a nice deep breath. And then bring your arms to goal post or a similar position that may work for your shoulders. And then with your next out breath, turn to the right, letting the left hip come forward. With the inhalation, come to center. And then with the next exhalation, turn to the left, letting the right hip come forward. We'll take this little twisting flow a few times, moving with your own breath. If you want to return to the vagus resetting breath of inhaling, swallowing, exhaling, and pausing, this is a beautiful place to practice that. Allowing this flow to move the hips along with the shoulders is very loving and kind for your spine. It also invites your chest to stay a little bit more open to receive the breath and to stay grounded at the same time. We'll do this one more time to each side. And then the next time you come to center, stay there, and then with an exhale, release the arms down. If you have them, grab a couple of blocks and place them in front of you on your mat. And from here, I invite you to bring your hands into, I'll actually show this from the front first and then I'll turn. To bring your hands into your groins. We're going to take some forward folds today, and your body is beautifully equipped with a forward fold hinge. That is your hip joint, which is not out here, which is what people often think, but it's actually deep inside your hips. And if you press on that hinge, you see that you actually can make a really nice fold. You could try this out if you were so inclined. As opposed to folding forward like this, which is often what you see people do in day-to-day life. I encourage you instead to get into the habit of folding from this beautiful hip joint, this hinge that you have for forward folding as we move into folds from here. So this was just a matter of demonstration. From here, you'll inhale the arms up. And with your next exhalation, fold in that hip hinge that you have. And let the hands land on your bricks. Find your grounding here through your feet. grow perhaps into that root system again. Also find grounding, however, through the hands. So really feel that the hands are pressing into the bricks as you hear in this very beautiful form. And then let go of the pressure in the hands, and then do this a few times where you bring pressure into the hands and then you let go of the pressure in the hands. And notice if you feel any difference in the back body, especially the thighs, the hamstrings, or the back of the lower legs in your soleus or gastrocnemius muscles, the big calf muscles in the back of your lower leg. And then from here, I invite you to dip down a little bit lower. Maybe the hands float above the floor, sort of in a little rag doll. Maybe you might even clasp your elbows. And stay there for a breath, and then with your next inhalation, come back to the hands on the bricks and press to come into a half lift. And then find a little rhythm here where you use the exhalation to release into a deeper forward fold, whatever shape that has for you this morning. And as you inhale, you come into a half lift and pause for a moment. Maybe you even swallow here before you exhale and release and pause in the forward fold. We'll do this 2 more times. Inhaling to a half lift. Feel the back of the body opening. Exhaling. Drawing down. You might notice that if you engage the hamstrings, sort of like pulling them up toward the sits bones, it's actually a more engaged stretch and it feels good for your body. The next time you inhale, rather than just rising to the bricks, come all the way back up to standing. Take a moment to bring your hands to your heart and then lovingly feel the back of your body. Just notice sensation that may have developed there. And then lovingly notice your energy, your emotions, maybe your breath is a little more forceful. And then lovingly notice what's happening in the mind. Is the mind telling you a story here? Is it maybe tapping into other memories of having forward folded and making comparison? Just notice. With your next exhalation, release the hands to your side. Inhale and lift. And exhale and fold from that forward fold hinge. Maybe you notice at this time your blocks can be at a lower setting for your forward fold. Maybe you have the flexibility to bring the hands on the floor. It doesn't really matter where they are. What matters is that you find resistance by pressing the hands into the blocks or into the floor. And then pay attention to what happens in the back body. You could even take your hands here and massage your calf muscles upward, massage your hamstrings upward, and just feel if that gives you lift through the backs of the legs. Have those calf muscles engaged. You could lift your toes to make that happen. And feel what happens then after you massage the backs of the legs when you return the hands to your blocks or to the floor and press. With your next inhalation, rise all the way back up. the exhalation, come back down. This time, grab a block and bring it between the calves. So it's like this. And then coming to your forward fold hinge, also bend the knees a lot and bring the torso onto the knees, letting the lower legs carry the weight of your body. From here, bring the arms in front of you. And then not leading with the hands, but leading with the heart, peel the torso away from the thighs. And then let the arms follow to come into a chair pose, squeezing that block with all you've got. But lovingly and kindly. Take a breath or two here. You can always return to the forward fold if my hold is too long. And then with your next exhalation, fold. Straightening the legs any amount. You have another block so your hands can come to that block so you can again feel what it's like to press the hands into the ground along with the feet. Then once again, bend the knees a lot. Let the torso rest on your thighs. Arms come forward, but they don't lead the way. Let your heart lead the way into chair pose. And notice what is happening here in your body, your breath. And perhaps most importantly, in your mind. This is a challenging pose. Can you sit in this chair pose and reconnect to your loving kindness? With your next out breath, release forward. Maybe this time you want to be in ragdoll. Maybe you want to continue to experiment with pressing the hands into the block or the floor. Yogi's choice. Wherever you are, reconnect to the breath. Maybe inhaling, swallowing, exhaling, pausing. One last time, shorter hold this time, I promise. Bend the knees a lot, rest the torso on the thighs, peel the torso away from the knees, chair pose. Feel this from the inside out. Does it feel different having persevered through this a few times? This time, as we inhale, we rise up. And then the hands release to the side as you remove the brick from between the legs. Now, from here, with the inhalation, we will once again lift the arms up. With the exhalation, we once again fold at our hip hinge. Hands come toward the floor and then walk them forward to the top of the mat and walk the feet back. Downward dog is actually a beautiful forward fold. So you can really feel that forward fold hinge here. And then release the knees to the floor. Release the forearms to the floor and interlace your hands. Dolphin Pose is kind of a variation on downward dog, but it provides less strain on the wrist. And so we will work in this forward fold with a little bit of a flow using that same breathing pattern of inhaling and either pausing or swallowing and exhaling and pausing. So you will flow forward out of the forward fold with the inhalation and back into the forward fold. As you exhale, maybe the forehead connects to the floor, but it does not have to. As you move through this flow, notice the length in the back body as you flow into the full dolphin extension here with the head on the ground, hands drawing away from the hips. And lovingly notice how your breath, your body, and your mind are responding. Become very introspective here, very curious about your energy. And move slowly with the breath, inviting a loving awareness of what is happening inside. Take 2 more flows. And at the end of the second flow, come all the way back into child's pose. And as you stay in child's pose, notice how this is an opportunity for the nervous system to resettle. This is an opportunity for you to reconnect to your capacity to be loving and kind, to be connected and grounded after the challenge of moving and flowing. And then gently bring the hands underneath the shoulders to press yourself up into hero's pose. We won't be here long, so no need to modify. And then from hero's pose, you will swing the hips to one side so that you can bring the legs out in front of you. And we'll come into staff pose, which is a seated posture, but it's also forward fold because you're actually using that forward fold hinge to make this form. And so if you notice in staff pose that you're kind of buckling a little bit in the back body, you might need to grab a blanket and sit up on a blanket or a little pillow to create your natural curve in your lumbar spine. So again, that's a loving and kind awareness, right, of what your body actually needs. Rather than just sort of fighting the sensation, sometimes it's okay to sit with it for a moment and say, I can actually change this sensation with a loving intervention. If you don't need the blanket to have that natural curve, then there is no need to use it. For a moment, take your hands behind you, fingertips pointing away from you, and open your heart by pressing the hands once again into the ground. Draw the toes toward you, so flex at the ankle, and feel the steadiness of this pose. And then in this position, find your grounding once again to the earth. You can ground through the backs of the heels of the feet, maybe through your calves, your thighs, your sits bones, You can ground through the hands. This is one of those forms in yoga that looks pretty easy, but when you actually take time to attend to it, to realize just how complex it is. And once you can recognize the complexity, you might also recognize your response to that complexity. And if you notice aversion or judgment or desire or getting caught up in wishing that you weren't here, then sit with it, literally, until you connect to your capacity to be loving and kind here, despite the challenge. You might find that love is easier if you connect to your core here, drawing the pelvic floor up, drawing the belly button in, connecting not just to the ground, but also to your inner stability and spaciousness. And then if you'd like to play, you can see what happens to this shape when you remove your hands and rest them by your side, or even bring them up and overhead, yogi's choice. How does the challenge change? And can you stay connected to yourself, to your community? And then as you breathe out, if your arms were lifted, bring them back to your side. And I will turn so that you can, well, actually, maybe I won't. So from here, have a blanket handy or a block. You may or may not need them, but it's nice to have them just in case. And stay on the blanket if you were on the blanket in staff pose. Take your hands, bring them under the left knee, and use the hands to bend that knee up. And just give it a nice little hug for a moment, bringing the foot as close into you as you can. You may notice that you have to shift your pelvis a little bit to really be in this position. This is where a block might come in handy in a moment, because from here, from this foot being next to the right inner thigh, we're going to turn that left leg out to bring the inside, bring the bottom of the foot to the inside of the right thigh. Now, your left leg might not meet the floor here, but we now know that grounding is really important, especially when we self-reflect, as we do in forward folds. So you need to give that leg something to ground on, and that might be a block under the leg. And you might see on the video that I'm putting my block on a little bit of an edge so that I don't have the side of the block cutting into my leg, but I have the flat part of the block supporting my leg. From here, inhale the arms up, and then turn to the right, bringing the left hand to the outside of the right thigh, and the right hand comes behind you, either on the floor, or it can levitate for a moment. We're not going to be here long. Let the left hip come forward a little bit for this twist in the fold. And then as you inhale the next time, get ready to move your body forward so that after you've paused or swallowed, as you exhale, you can slide that left hand along the outside of the right leg forward any amount, and then bring the right hand and bring it to the inside of the right leg across from the left hand. You might be here. You might be here. You might be here. Maybe you can clasp your foot. It doesn't matter how far forward you fold. What matters is the health of your low back, the attention you pay to the posture, the grounding through the parts of you that can connect to the earth, and the spaciousness that you continue to maintain in your heart and in your mind. All of that with stability in your core. There's a lot to think about here. You can make a little hammock out of your arms here and rest the head for a moment. And as you rest your head on your arms, move inward. Notice what is happening inside of you. Are there stories in your mind? Are there challenges in your emotions or your energy? Can you sit with them? Can you transform them? Can you reconnect to your capacity to be loving, to be kind? With your next inhalation, release the pose as lovingly as you came in. So maybe sliding the hands up on both sides of your leg. And then release the block, if you used it, under your left leg, and bring that left leg forward. Take a moment to ground with spider fingers to lift the hips up. Shake a little bit side to side, and then re-ground the hips either on the blanket or the floor before we switch sides. It's a nice reminder for the body to reset, right? Before you change the next obstacle or challenge, to take that moment, to take that pause. Then from here, take the hands under the right knee and let the hands guide the knee into the chest, and then hug that leg in, maybe shifting the right hip forward just a little bit. That's usually what happens in my anatomy. That might not happen in yours. And then having the block ready in case you need it, bring the bottom of the foot to the inside of the left thigh, either propping that right knee or letting it come to the ground. As you inhale, breathe the arms up. As you exhale, turn to the left, bringing the right hand to the outside of the left leg, maybe at the level of the thigh, maybe at the level of the shin. Nothing wrong with bringing it to the level of the knee either. Sit in this open-hearted, twisting forward fold. Pose has a little bit of everything. Inhale here to prepare yourself for the next step. And then as you exhale, slide that right hand along the outside of the left leg, wherever you can go. There's no magic place for that hand. And then bring the left hand to the inside of the left leg to bring yourself into this forward fold. Again, you might be here. Let your low back determine how far you can move forward into this fold. As long as you're grounded and spacious and stable, pelvic floor drawing in, belly button drawing in, you'll be fine. The outer shape is not important. And then when you have found a good spot, for you, you can make a little hammock with your arms and maybe rest the head yet again. Connect inward. What are the sensations in your body? What are the sensations in your breath? And what are the stories in your mind? Little judgments or worries. Just notice them, sit with them, and then invite them to transform into loving, into kindness. Take one more round of breath here. With your next inhalation, lovingly and gently slide your way back up, giving yourself feedback of the movement with the hands on the left leg. And then this time, draw the left leg in to meet, so that the soles of your feet can meet. And just hold your toes together with your hands for a moment, and again, come into a nice straight seat here. Your feet may be out here, that's totally okay. Your spine can still be neutral and natural, even if it's leaning more into the forward fold. And in fact, that is where you're headed. You can lean more into this form, into this shape here. Keeping the heart open. This is the trick about forward folds. We can introspect and pay attention, but we do it with an open heart because it's really not for our benefit. It's to the benefit of our community. But if we forward fold, collapsing the heart, it isn't. So let's see if you can keep the heart open, and it might mean you're not moving forward as much as you sometimes do in your forward fold. Wherever you are, breathe. Maybe inhaling, swallowing, exhaling, pausing. You might notice that as you hold, you can move more deeply into the fold. This is true for our introspection too. As we hold, as we keep paying attention, we can go deeper and deeper. We learn more and more to open up to our inner experience and our outer experience. Gently begin to prepare yourself to come out of the pose, starting the movement with the inhalation, lifting the torso up, and then using the hands to support the knees to bring the legs together. From here, if you have a bolster, I invite you to grab that and bring it onto a couple of bricks like this. If you don't have a bolster, take a chair and use the chair for this purpose. You will bring your legs to the outside of the bolster. If you have a chair, you're going to come into basically the preparation for a wide-kneed child's pose. And if you're using a chair, have a pillow or a blanket on the seat, and then rest your hands, your arms, on the seat of the chair so that you can settle your forehead down like this for a child's pose to release. If you have a bolster, you forward fold your belly onto the bolster, and then you can rest your head on the bolster like this. The chair works just as well, or a yoga ball, or a big pillow, a sofa cushion even if it's removable. And then wherever you are in this restorative child's pose, which is a beautiful forward fold, if it feels appropriate, you can invite your eyes to close. And your attention to draw inward yet again. Feeling the sensations in your body. Connecting to your energy, your emotions, perhaps through the breath. And then becoming very attentive to what is happening in your mind. Just watching as thoughts unfold here. Not necessarily engaging with them, but watching them like you would a movie on a big screen. Curious, open-hearted, maybe even without judgment. If you're on a bolster like I am and you have your face turned to one side, this might be a good time to turn the neck the other way so that you have even exposure to the stretch on both sides. And continue to observe, continue to watch. Attentively, mindfully, lovingly. What arises in your mind, what presents itself in your breath. And what shows up in your body. And then gently lift yourself out of this shape. Remove the props that you used and bring yourself to a supine position. Transition onto your back, yogi's choice. And find your Shavasana position. Maybe propping the head. Maybe having a little rolled blanket or small pillow under the knees. Especially if the low back feels a little tweaked, make sure that you have the knees supported with something. You could even bend the knees, bring them together, and have the feet mat width apart. Take the time to lovingly settle into your Shavasana position. We're going to end class in Shavasana today. We won't get back up, so that those of you who have extra time in your day can actually stay in Shavasana for 5 to 10, maybe even 15 minutes. And so settle yourself in. Allow the body once again to root and ground and become heavy. Invite the breath to become soft and easeful. Invite the mind to be anchored to the breath and the body. Invite your intuition to let you know how to settle the body, how to settle the breath, and how to settle the mind. And then lovingly and kindly, I invite you to find silence after I have closed the session with a few words of appreciation for you. May you have access to places of safety, regardless of circumstances. May you have access to wellness, regardless of health or illness. May you have access to moments of happiness every day. May you find ease and peace whenever possible. Thank you for practicing. Please stay in your Shavasana for as long as your life circumstances allow, and take good care.